But Moore's view still faces some problems. So the first problem that we're going to think about here is kind of a metaphysical problem. So a problem to do with the kinds of things that we are suggesting exist in the world, and their nature. And the problem here is we've said that Moore believes in kind of non-natural moral properties that we can access knowledge of through our intuition. And the question that follows as a result of this is, why should we believe in non-natural entities when our worldview is primarily scientific? So science seems to be doing a very good job of explaining how the world works, such that the vast majority of people will have accepted that we can explain the totality of how the world works simply by developing our understanding of science better. It's not to say that we can currently do it, but the prediction is that by doing more and more science, we're going to explain things that previously seemed mysterious. And Moore's view requires that we reject that assumption and instead say that there's always going to be something that science can't explain, namely our moral knowledge. And there's going to be things that, with moral facts existing in a way that's non-natural, these are going to exist in a. These are going to be things that exist in a way that is completely different to how we understand other kinds of things, other kinds of facts. And so there's a question here about whether we want to believe in these kinds of entities that don't exist physically or don't exist in a way that is kind of dependent on humans. And so it seems like it kind of requires us to believe in some strange stuff. And this has been something that's been a problem for a lot of people in trying to accept Moore's view. It seems too metaphysically kind of speculative to assume that there are these kind of ethical truths or ethical properties that exist kind of mysteriously in the world. And the second big problem that comes up for Moore's view is more epistemological or epistemic. And so this is being to do with our knowledge. So even if we don't think the metaphysical problem is super difficult, if we think that, yeah, maybe I can buy into the existence of these moral properties or moral truths existing non-naturally, there still seems to be a problem about how could we get knowledge of these moral truths if they are as Moore describes. So Moore tells us that we have this kind of property of intuition that enables us to understand some basic features about ethical life. But if moral knowledge, or sorry, moral facts exist non-naturally, it's going to be unclear how our intuition could access these, because all of our other senses rely on coming into contact with physical things, and physical laws of causation need to be in place for us to understand knowledge about how the world works. And so if this is a big part of the world that doesn't work causally or physically, it seems like we need to have a really big story about how we can understand these moral truths that Moore says that we can. And so the big question that we're left with here is this a plausible account of where our intuitions come from? Should we accept, as Moore says, that we have this faculty of intuition that allows us to understand these certain basic moral truths? For sure. And so personally, I find these two problems for intuitionism to be quite compelling and sufficient to kind of reject Moore's view. But it's worth saying that a lot of people who are contemporary philosophers are still non-naturalists who kind of side with Moore and are inspired by his views, maybe don't say the exact same thing as he wanted to say, but are saying something that's inspired by and similar because they think that they have answers to these problems.